Sands Unified School District Board of Education, and if you will all stand, we'll be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by our student member, Brody Zaid.
Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will now observe a moment of silence. Thank you. Item number 1, adoption of the agenda. Any changes?
Yes, we'd like to pull item 10.5, please.
Pardon?
10.5, we would like to pull.
Cool, okay. And we will move to Educational Administration, approval of Las Flores Title I school-wide program waiver and resubmission of the school-wide program. Oops, I'm on the wrong page. And you're all wondering, what is he talking about? That brings us to approval of the minutes of the special meeting of December 4th and the regular and special meetings of November 16th. If they are accepted as presented, we will move right on and to programs and presentations. And the presentation by Government Financial Services Joint Powers Authority, potential school facilities funding from a new general obligation bond measure. And that would be Ms. Ranieri.
Good evening, and thank you very much for having us. And Keith Weaver of our staff, I think he just stepped out. Oh, you're right here. He came right around me. He could have taken my wallet and gotten out the door, and I don't know if I would have been aware. So, and for those of you who've known me a long time, you know that I always have been coming with a service dog. This is a new service dog, Millie, and you all remember Daisy, the black dog. Now I have a white dog. Anyway, thank you for having us, and before we begin, we do want to respect your time and be quick, but I also want to thank you for being a member of the Government Financial Services Joint Powers Authority. You were one of our early members, and we are up to 49 education agency members, either school districts or county offices of education, and we're actually getting very close to closing off membership, so you're in a very elite group, we think, and for those in the public who wonder what we're talking about, the district has joined with other school districts to get the kind of services we provide and committed to operate according to best practices, ethics, and transparency. So we're thrilled that you're part of it, and we really appreciate being part of your team. So again, I'm Lori Ranieri, this is Keith Weaver, and we have kind of a lengthy presentation, but it's going to go quick. Because you're not being asked to make any decision tonight, just giving you some information, and we'll certainly answer any questions you have, but we wanted to give you a chance to absorb and think about this over the next few weeks. So what we're going to cover tonight is review the district's outstanding debt, review the Measure A bonds and the tax levies, talk about a potential new bond measure, and share some relevant historical experience around the district, and go over a timeline and bond measure process. And then there's other information for reference in the back, which we're not going to go over. So first of all, just a summary of the district's debt. The district has bonds outstanding that relate to Measure A, which was in 2006. The district also had issued certificates of participation and some lease purchase financing, and some of that debt is still outstanding. And one of the reasons that we're showing the call dates here is we monitor those to look for refinancing opportunities. It's not like a mortgage that you can prepay at any time, so that's part of the debt management. And the Measure A bonds have 10 years left outstanding, and the lease purchase and the COPs have 8 and 3 respectively. The other thing is that we have the ratios of the repayment for each dollar borrowed, so that's just a statistic that we take advantage of, we take notice of as a way of measuring the cost of the debt. And then, as you know, not all of the Measure A bonds were issued, and that has to do with where the tax rates are, and we'll cover that in just a minute. So we'll next go to the debt service on Measure A, and we did a refinancing a few years ago, and you can see that the debt service slopes upward, and that's an attempt to have the debt service mirror growth in the tax base so that the tax rates are stable. And so when you think of tax rates, we'll go to the next slide, the term tax rate is, in this instance, you can think of it as a rate ratio, and it's basically debt service divided by assessed value. And the reason that we have that approximately equal is there are different kinds of assessed value in the tax base, so the formula is not exactly debt service divided by assessed value. There's details that aren't important for this discussion, although we pay a lot of attention to how the county does this. But the way to think about it is that each property in the district, when you have a bond outstanding, pays its pro rata share of the debt service, and it's based on each property's individual assessed value, not market value. And most people kind of keep track of what's my home worth, what's my property worth, but anybody who would like to know what their assessed value is can look on their tax bill, and if they can't find their tax bill, they can go to the county's website and they can type in their address, and you can also type in your neighbor's address if you're curious, and you can see what the assessed value is and what the taxes are that are being paid. So looking at the next slide, when we think about the bonds that we have outstanding and we project tax rates, we're looking at the future tax base, and that's also true as in thinking about a new measure. And one of the things that you can see that's interesting about our tax base is that, well, overall, it's grown tremendously, as shown on this slide. Since 1998, the average growth has been just over 4%. There have been periods of decline where the tax base has lost value, and there have been periods where it has slowed down. And we're in a period of growth, over 7% the last 2 years. But you can see from the history, we don't assume that that will go on forever, because that's not what the history tells us. Now, interestingly, if you look at the bars on the bottom, those are indicative of the major reason that the tax base goes up, which is the change that comes to all properties because a year passes. And most people are familiar with the idea that according to Prop 13, which became Article 13A of the Constitution, all properties are reassessed each year at the lesser of the California Consumer Price Index from the prior calendar year, or 2%. And when you look at those bars on the bottom and you see the ones in green, those are all the years in which the change was 2%. But everywhere it's pink, that's where the change was not 2%. And so I'll draw your attention to 2010. In 2010, most property owners in California, because most property owners in a given year don't buy property or improve property, they just own the property they had, right? Everybody's property was reassessed downward because the California Consumer Price Index was negative. And I don't remember in 2010 that ticker tape parade, yay, we have reduced taxes. In fact, I cannot find a single headline about that fact. But it's an interesting part about Prop 13. So that's one reason that property values change. A year passes and everybody is reassessed. The second reason is the one that most people know: the property is sold and it's reassessed at the sales price. The next reason is that the property is improved, and then the value of the improvement is added. And just to get a sense of how small that is, I added a wood stove to my house. I'm a rule follower, so I pulled a building permit. The amount on the building permit was exactly what the county assessor picked up and added to my assessed value. So if you improve your property, and then the final reason that property value changes is when the assessed value happens to be above market value. And that can happen if you bought a home, it was reassessed, and then there's a recession, right? The market value could go below assessed value. You'll be reassessed downward because you never have to pay more than market value. Does that make sense to everybody? Now, a lot of people have questions about their individual property. As I said, anybody can look up their property tax bill or any property tax bill if they want. But if anybody has questions, that's what we're here for. So please, if you get what I call the grocery store question, somebody says, oh, we've got this ranch and we've got this and we've got that and we've got the outbuilding, whatever questions they have, you can certainly direct them to look at their property tax bill online if they don't have it handy, and we'll certainly help them understanding their tax bill. And one thing to remember about a tax bill, it's kind of like a hotel bill. The general property tax rate is 1%, and that's the biggest portion. And then there's a whole bunch of really small portions, like most people's tax bill doesn't get over 1.1%, 1.15%, and yet it's that stuff over 1 that's all itemized. You know how a hotel bill, the room's 150, and then there's like 4 things that are like $6, right? So it's kind of like that. So that's another thing that can throw people off. And at another time, we'll go into more detail on that. But looking ahead to what will the Measure A taxes be in the future, we have to project the tax base, and we've been, we think, reasonably conservative given the history. We've assumed that the net local secured assessed value, which that's homes and buildings, is 3% annually. And then we've assumed all other types of assessed value have a 0% change, so that gives us slightly less than 3% overall. So we're trying to be conservative, and when we look at page 10, we can see that our tax rates have kind of bounced around for Measure A, and that they are above the $60 projected limit, and that's why the Measure A bonds have not been able to be fully issued, because the rule, there's different types of bond measures, but the type that requires a 55% voter approval requires that the projected tax rate not be above 60 at the time of bond issuance. So Measure A did what it could, and it, you know, it's been many years now, and so from my perspective, Measure A is kind of over, right? We did that, and we're moving on. And the projected tax rates are going above 60 because we've assumed that the tax base would grow at an average that's slightly less than 3. And the debt service, you remember when I showed you that slope is well above 3. And that's because at the time that Measure A was passed, and that was before we were involved, but what our understanding was is they assumed a very high rate of tax base growth that didn't happen. So that's, sometimes reality is different than you might expect. So another thing that we look at is a limitation of bonding capacity. We can only have outstanding at one time 2.5% times our assessed value. And so currently we have 73.7 million of bonding capacity. We have 10.9 million of outstanding general obligation bonds. So we have 62.8 million of remaining bonding capacity right now. And the amount of bonding capacity we'll have will grow over time as our assessed value grows, and the bonds that we currently have outstanding get paid down. So that's what this chart is showing here. And now Keith Weaver is going to share with you some ideas in terms of thinking about a new measure.
Hi, good evening. So transitioning to thinking about what a new bond measure might look like. There's just a couple constraints that we have to work within. One is our taxing capacity, and for a unified school district, our maximum that we can target is a projection of $60 per 100,000 of assessed value. And then our second constraint is our bonding capacity, which Lori shared, and we have a limitation on that of 2.5% of assessed value for a unified district. So those are the two parameters that we need to think about in terms of working within. And so another thing is our assumptions. So we start by thinking about interest rates. You've probably heard a lot in the news about interest rates generally being on the rise this year. To be conservative, we assume that interest rates will go up in the future. We plan for that, we budget for it, and we were showing the budgeted interest rate increases here. If the increases doesn't happen, fantastic, right? We'll get to do this cheaper than what we've planned for. But again, just to be conservative, we've erred on the side of caution here and plan for interest rates to continue to rise. And then on the assessed valuation, Lori explained, we're assuming what we think is a relatively conservative growth rate of 3% for land and buildings and 0% for everything else. And then on the tax rate, so as a starting point, we've started with trying to achieve that maximum $60 projected tax levy. We can always dial it down from there, but we thought, you know, let's just try to see what's the most we could get, and that might be a good place for us to start. And so where that lands us is a bond measure of $38 million. It could be implemented over 3 years. And after costs, which again, we think we've been very conservative in budgeting for costs, that would net us about $36 million for facilities projects. And then thinking about some experience with our surrounding community. So this is a graph showing the tax levies for the school districts here in Kern County. It's organized by high school district with elementary feeders. And then on the right-hand side is the unified school districts. You can see us highlighted in yellow, and you can see kind of where we stack compared to other school districts here in the county. And this is showing a school bond measure that have been put on the ballot here in Kern County going back to 2010. You can see there's been a lot of school districts who have attempted to put bonds on the ballot, and in general, there's been a lot of success here in the county. And you can see that countywide, on average, when school districts have tried to put bonds on the ballot, the success rate has been 71%. So that's quite a high success rate and comparable to the state average, which is 75. And then we're showing here statewide the success of school districts putting bonds on the ballot. You can see the top there is the success rate. It's been some ups and downs, but generally speaking, the success rate's been quite high. Again, the average has been 75% support. And then the bars along the bottom are the number of school bonds that have been put on the ballot. And I just want to highlight for you that the most common time to put it on the ballot is the general election. As you know, we do have a general election coming up in November 2024, and it also tends to be the most successful time for school districts to put bonds on the ballot. So thinking about timeline. So this is the facilities master plan timeline. This was shared with you at the board meeting in September. And just highlighting that a potential bond measure in November 2024 is on our timeline here, and we are sort of marching toward that date. And you can see all of the facilities, projects, and planning that is happening around this target election date. And then as we get to that election, what's going to happen, what's on this chart is that we're in process with that facilities master plan. We're in December now with our finance discussion, sharing with you financial information. And then what's going to happen next is some community research. And that research is taking place with the public opinion survey that is underway. And the scheduled presentation to share the results with you is on the March 7th board meeting. And then based on that research, there may be further community outreach to engage our community on facilities needs that are important to them. And then around the April-June timeframe, if everything's looking good, if we're seeing a green light here, we may be discussing a resolution for your consideration to put a bond on the ballot. And our deadline to get the information to the county, if we want to proceed, is August 9th. And then if that is approved and does go on to the county for the election, then there will be a campaign run by an independent campaign committee. The election is November 5th in 2024. And then if that's successful, there are oversight and accountability requirements that we'd start to implement, including a citizens oversight committee. With that, I'd like to pause and say thank you and open it up to any questions, and we're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Board members have any questions of the presentation? Kurt?
Yeah, thanks. Good presentation as always. A lot of detail and I think clear, clear as well for most of it, for me anyway. So one of the things you mentioned early on was that the ability to tap into Measure A is essentially gone. But it's still there. And I think one of the things that I think we said, I don't know if it was official or, but certainly our intention was that we were going to essentially get,
I think you refer to cancel the bonding authority.
Right, cancel the bonding authority for Measure A, and a lot of the public was concerned about, geez, we're putting out another bond, but we got all this money we can get on Measure A, and the reality is we can't get any money on Measure A, and we would probably, as we go forward, we would probably cancel Measure A,
right,
because it's doing us no good other than, making it look like we have the access to some money that we really don't.
The board could adopt a resolution canceling that authority, and it could do so independent of considering another measure, or you could do it at the same time, that you consider another measure in the same resolution, if you thought that might help for the communication purpose of how things are tied together.
Sure, great, thank you.
Any other questions from board members? Any questions from the public, staff? Thank you so much for the presentation.
Great, thank you.
That brings us to reports and communications, student members report. Rhodey?
From Murray Middle School. This past month, we continue to focus on developing our culture and community programs at Murray Middle School with a support today from our SSC Council, PTSO members, and LCAP parents and students. We are so thankful this month to have a representation from our parents to represent our school site council and PTSO and being at COCO with the principal. LCAP meetings in support of building our PTSO membership. As we commit to building a new culture and being dedicated to involving our community and parents, we honored them for their participation. This past month, we have moved into recognizing Student of the Month from each teacher, a past tradition that we have reintroduced, celebrating autumn with our haunted Halloween dance on, I think we already mentioned that before, coffee the principal on December 13th, and approaching our staff to refine and reintroduce training for new staff on Avid Education. Ms. McKenzie recently attended a professional development conference on inclusion collaboration in San Jose to keep us informed and involved in how to best support our MS students. Our student body is currently in the tradition of our annual canned food drive, and we celebrate the volleyball season ending with participation at Saracosa Community College on November 3rd, with placing third for the 6th and 7th team, and 8th grade participation under the leadership of our new coach, Lindsay Kelves. We had our combined Monroe-Murray cross-country banquet on November 13th at Burroughs, and we are thrilled to have students compete and strive to be a part of something very special that pushes them to work together with Monroe athletes. We are now into practices with our girls and boys basketball teams for the winter season under the leadership of Coach Jayfert Hernandez, Coach David Shadwick, Coach Kyle, and Crystal Clamped. We are anticipating a strong season with over 55 students representing Murray. Some other great news is that we kicked off our fundraising events with the community at the Rich Dress Cinemas, Not on Balsam in February, and other activities with our expanded PTSO team of parent leaders. We completed the holiday season with music concerts earlier this week on December 12th, supporting band and orchestra, as well as an art show, variety show, and having a series of student events with ASB and Rachel's Link. Our students will go on trips to Death Valley this month with Ms. Bruchot and continue the learning with our science team back at school from these events. From Monroe Middle School. Returning from the fall break is always the beginning of a mad dash through the holidays and the finish of the first semester. These past few weeks have been filled with campus beautification and taking a little pride in our campus. The winter concerts were magnificent as each of the groups of performers showed growth and brought us into the season. Our music teachers do so much working with the other sites to manage such a busy but joyous time. The James Monroe Spelling Bee is scheduled for tomorrow, and we have quite a few students aimed at representing our school at the district-wide Spelling Bee next month. We have a handful of students who are working on projects for the Kern County Science Fair in Bakersfield. They have been working on the project since the start of the year, exploring their curiosities in science. They will spend the winter break putting on the finishing touches to their presentations. Our PTSO has jumped in and celebrated our teachers and students both before the fall break and again this week. We are so lucky to have a dedicated group of parents to support us. Finally, our 8th graders have hit the mark on their English IAB assessments. They have been striving for 90% of the 8th grade class meeting or exceeding standards, and they did it. Through intervention and support by their team of teachers, the students continue to show improvement in their reading and writing skills, and it's paying off. We hope to spread that motivation into the 7th and 6th graders to earn a school-wide celebration in the spring. Finally, the Tiger family of staff and students want to wish all of the community a safe and happy holiday season. From Mesquite. Mesquite has graduated 2 more students since the last report, which brings our total to 10 for the year, and that does not yet include the students set to graduate on the 15th. For Thanksgiving, our students got to participate in a scavenger hunt and feast, and for our winter break, students can decorate cookies along with a midterm festival, which families are invited to attend. Congratulations to all of our students who are now moving on to the next phase of their adult life. Some are attending college, others are starting internships on base, some have moved to CTE internships such as welding, and several are starting a career in the military, so thank you for your service. The week before, students dressed up in pairs or small groups for Twin Day, and it even looked like there may have been 2 Cosners walking around campus. This week, every day was a spirit day, including comfy, school-appropriate pajamas, and of course, a day to recognize ugly sweaters. While our paralegal presentation was postponed, we were looking forward to more presentations from the base and CLPD in the next semester, so keep exploring those careers, dragons, and show them how to soar. And from Burroughs. Burroughs is now closing out the first semester, and we have had a lot that has happened in the last month. This week is finals week, and students have been studying, preparing for their finals. In sports, Zion Ortiz and Eve Washburn qualified for state and cross country. Ortiz placed 5th in the competition in Division 4, earning all-state recognition. He was the 16th fastest runner in all divisions and broke the school course record. Eve placed 30th in Division 4 and broke the school course record. In winter sports, soccer, basketball, and wrestling have been playing hard and have been very successful. Cheer entered the first competition and placed 1st in the elite division. During Thanksgiving break, Carolyn Pillars, a member of the class of 2020, came to Burroughs to give a presentation about the United States Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland. The presentation allowed attendees to learn about life and academics at the academy and encouraged them to look into the school. As we got into the holiday spirit, jinglegrams were sold from November 29th to December 5th and were distributed on December 8th. We also had our annual tree decorating competition, which allowed clubs, organizations, and classes to make holiday trees with a lot of festive spirit. The winners of the competition were yearbook. This month, we also had 2 spirit days. On the 8th, we had Ugly Sweater Day, and on the 12th, we had Pajama Day. On December 2nd, 2023, BHS Science and CT classes participated in STEM Day. China Lake Naval Base, the base presented 12 presentations that included a variety of activities and demonstrations for students to see and do. Some of these included T-pad Doppler, high-speed recording, explosive materials mixing, composite engineering, future technologies, and hands-on chemistry demonstrations. The adult transition program has been working hard on crafts with their students. Students in the program have been working on blankets, candles, pens, handmade cards, and ornaments. On Saturday, December 2nd, 27 of our California Scholarship Federation, or CSF, members, led by advisor Mrs. Doms, participated in a campus cleanup at Burroughs. In all, members filled up 10 large bags full of trash. Last week, the band, orchestra, and choir held their winter concerts. The drum company also had a winter performance. Winter Guard had its tryouts and have begun practices. They will be competing next semester, backed by the drumline. Auditions for the next play, Charlotte's Web, took place, and the AV Club has released another edition of its newscast.
Thank you, Brody. That brings us to item 2, reports from members of the board. Mr. Rockwell.
Earlier in the month, or later in the last month, the board had the opportunity to go to the California School Board Association Annual Education Conference. And there were a lot of great presentations, a lot of great vendors that we were able to talk with. But a few things I wanted to point out that kind of really stood out for me. One of the great things, this is the second time he's come, but Sal Khan came and was one of the keynote speakers. So if you're familiar with Khan Academy, this is Khan from Khan Academy. He's a very dynamic speaker and very kind of forward-thinking in ways to educate people. And I was impressed with what he had to say about AI. And for those who are interested, one organization he mentioned that is working to make sure that AI is being used as a tool and not a hindrance to education was teachingai.org. So check that out if you're interested. And then also they have been utilizing AI at Khan Academy, and they have a virtual assistant called Khan Migo, and he demonstrated a lot of what that can do, and it's amazing what they're bringing to all of us. So I also attended a session on financial skills for board members, and there were a few things that frankly I didn't have a lot to do with skills unless it is coping with fear. But you know, the comment was that the state income taxes were coming in grossly under projections. That's not good for us, and you know, makes things very hard. And the other thing that happens is that the governor's got to come out with a budget in January. What he comes out with in January is going to be nothing but a wild guess. And you know, the real data won't come out until the May revise. So we will, you know, do our best and proceed based on what we know when we know it. But it's going to be a lot more of a guessing game because we have to make a lot of decisions before March for some things, and if we don't hear really firm numbers until May, that obviously makes that a challenge. So. Let's see, great presentation on school bonds and when to do them, when not to, and you know, how to make them be successful if you do them, and all of that. And then the last thing I'll mention, the last keynote, the last general session on Saturday morning, there was a speaker. Name is Mark C. Perna, P-E-R-N-A, and yeah, I remember looking at the material for the conference and seeing this guy coming on Saturday, and I thought, I'll go because I go to everything when I'm there, but you know, I'm not very excited. I have to say it was one of the best presentations at CSBA that I've seen. You know, there are a few that stand out in my mind over the last 16 times I've been there, and this was great. Really good discussion about really what we need to be doing for our kids, and it's not about pushing them to be college ready. It's not about pushing them to think about a career. What it really ought to start with is think about the lifestyle you want to live. And if you have a good understanding of the kind of lifestyle you want to live, then that can lead you to the kind of career you need to have to support that. And then that can lead you to, do you need to go to college? Or do you need to go to a trade school? Or do you need to go into the military? Or, you know, whatever. And his company, you know, provides a lot of tools to help sort of pull out, you know, those lifestyle choices and the kinds of careers that you can build on to help you live the lifestyle you want to live. So it was really a pretty amazing thing for me, and I just sort of got a new religion as I was listening to the guy. So look him up if you're interested, Mark C. Perna, and hopefully we'll see more from that in the future. Thanks.
Sure. Anybody else? I just want to make a couple of comments. I also enjoyed the conference. I think a number of inspirational points, a lot of good information, and in a good blend. I think certainly it is sobering to look at what the projections are on our financial future, and I think it behooves us as a district to move forward with caution, understanding that we need to provide the best for our students and do it in a way that we can maintain as much of our program as we can, and do it fiscally sound and wise. But I also think there were, like you said, Kurt, there were a number of things that were very inspirational about how it is we engage our students. And, you know, we can offer a really broad breadth of programs, but if we don't find a way to engage the students, they don't benefit from it in the way they ought to and they need to. And so I see that as one of our challenges as we move forward, because and I guess this isn't really new. There's always this concept of generational understanding and whether we understand the next generation or not. So that's probably not a new thing, but it's a new thing to each generation, right? And I think that's part of what we need to do, is to learn how to engage this next generation in a way that they can make the most of what we have to offer, and we can find the best way to provide for them what they need. So.
What you say speaks powerfully, because you've seen many more generations than some of us.
Thanks, I kind of set myself up for that, didn't I? Okay, if there are no other presentations from board members, I will move to the superintendent's report.
Mary may have some.
Mary, did you say,
Well,
I'm sorry.
I was just making a comment with Brody, saying that Mrs. Brochot's taking kids to Death Valley, and I remember being able to do that with the students before I retired, and it was an excellent presentation, and there's so many activities that they did with the kids. It's a little long drive, but well worth it, because Death Valley is a really beautiful place. So I was glad to hear that, so, yeah.
And I guess I also forgot that I had intended to comment that I was able to attend a number of the presentations from the schools for the holiday presentations at Burroughs and at Murray, and it's good again to see the various ways our kids are able to grow, and not just in academics, but as human beings in many ways. So, and now I will go to Dr. Moore.
Okay, thank you. So month 3 enrollment has been completed, and we are still up from last year. So we're at 5,091, which is up 43 from this time last year. And our attendance rate is continuing to stay higher than last year as well. So we're up 1.2% from last year, holding in that 94% range. It's 94.1% attendance. So while we always want 100% and are striving for that, it is an improvement from last year. So thank you again, that team effort with families, staff, everybody to get our students to school to learn. Since the last board meeting, I enjoyed also attending band, orchestra, and choral concerts at Burroughs High School. It's such a festive time and season, and there continue to be more events tomorrow at many of our elementary schools. And so, our cabinet team have been prioritizing getting out and about and taking part in all of that. Many of our schools are also wrapping up their Capturing Kids' Hearts surveys with staff, students, and families, and that goes basically through tomorrow, and then we'll be getting some data to see how are we doing in our implementation, and that will be helpful as we set our next steps and continue to support this important process that we've adopted for use district-wide. And I know we have an agenda item later in our meeting to renew our contract for next year and continue that process. And it's really, we're looking to make Capturing Kids' Hearts, some of those protocols, how we do business in Sierra Sands. And so we're looking forward to continuing that work. Also looking forward to supporting a Chromebook giveaway over the next few days and into next week, sponsored by the Bee Mountain Foundation, something we started last year. Many of our families are partnering with us, providing their household income to qualify our schools for really critical funding that we need to be able to provide all the wonderful wealth of opportunities we've just been discussing. And so qualifying families are entered into a raffle. We have 600 Chromebooks that we expect to give away over the next few days. So we'll continue to collect those from anyone who hasn't yet, and appreciate the tremendous workload on our office managers who are making those phone calls and catching up with folks that haven't yet had a chance to provide that information. And then finally, wanted to thank all of the board for your leadership. We've been having a whole litany of meetings and such, and in particular, President Ferris and Mr. Rockwell, who are representing us in CSBA leadership, which was evident as we attended the conference, but in so many ways they're representing the needs of Sierra Sands and our area statewide to ensure that our voice is being heard. And also recently, President Bill Ferris just completed another meeting. He represents us on the County Committee for School District Organization. And so there's a lot of times behind the scenes meetings that take place that aren't up here in public, and just really appreciate all of you for the time and energy that you're putting in to serve our community. Thank you.
Thank you. It brings us to item 4, report to the Board of Trustees by the Desert Area Teachers Association. Ms. Poole.
Good evening, Superintendent Moore, President Ferris, board members, colleagues, community, everybody. I want to start out by saying I always get a kick out of hearing the report that the student reads, and it's always lovely. And I just want to point out, as we really emphasize this capturing kids' hearts and really talking about the student as a whole, Drama Club won 2nd place in the tree decorating contest at Burroughs, and you only called out 1st place. So, and somebody won 3rd, and I don't remember who, because my club won 2nd. Yearbook and news writing had really fabulous trees. It was really exciting to see how terrific all the trees looked. They were really nice. Drama Club was pretty awesome. Just wanted to call that out. Okay, so it's the week where we're working really hard, right? And up in secondary, especially in high school, you know, we've got all the finals, which is a lot, right? And our kids get it, and especially at high school, we really want to prep them to let them know, like, this is, you know, how college is going to be. You get all these finals when it feels like you just want to have a lot of fun and think about holidays, however you celebrate them. So I just want to recognize that, and it's kind of a tricky time. And I know everybody is busy, but it's a tricky time to be a teacher because we want to, you know, keep our kids feeling good, and we recognize that a lot of our students aren't looking forward to happy holidays, and we've got to finish up units, and there's a lot going on for the people who are staying there in front of the kids every day. And I wanted to point that out and just like acknowledge my colleagues, and certainly not just the teachers, right? Because everybody on the schools, the custodians, maintenance, office staff, everybody is putting up with a lot. And I think it's pretty neat. We're all in this together. Let's see. As I've mentioned before, I heard there's something going on with Monroe. So I know we have the facilities committee meeting. I haven't attended. I've been spending an awful lot of time with some medical stuff that I think is finally behind me. But a lot of data members and other people, community, are going to the meetings. And I put out, as I do, as data president, I put out a lot of surveys because I'm obligated as the president to listen to what members have to say. And I was hearing things casually when I talked to people, running into people in the store, at meetings, emails, and so I put out a survey, and I'm going to forward the results to you because I think it's important to note that certainly committee sounds quite democratic. There's something that happens in a room, right? And sometimes when you're in a room with a bunch of people, you can kind of lose sight of how you feel. And so I wanted to give members who, and a lot of teachers really wanted to be on the committee, and then they saw, oh, there's, you know, that huge time commitment, and I've got so many other things going on. So I put out a survey, as I do. I love my Google surveys. And what I found really interesting, and I have to pull it up on here. I asked several questions. Like I said, I can forward them. But the two that I wanted to talk about, we looked at the configuration. So TK2 and 3.6, TK3 and 4.6, TK5 and standalone 6, and TK8. So those were how it broke down. And I asked, which configuration do you like the best? And 48% of people said that TK3 and 4.6, and then 40% said TK5 with the 6 standalone, which I thought was pretty interesting. Not one person said TK8, and 12% said TK2 and 3.6. And I know this is a really big topic. It's gets a lot of people worked up, right? Because you're thinking about my 6th grader as my, second grader going to be around a 6th grader. So I know there's a lot of emotions and a lot of really legitimate feelings that come into these kind of questions. And then I asked, which configuration do you like least? And here, 68% said the TK8. And then 20% TK5 with the standalone 6, and 12% the TK2 3.6. And so the like least was much clearer on where people stood. So the like most, 48% TK3 to 4.6, 40% TK5, 6 standalone, and like least 68% the TK8. So there were a few other questions, but I don't want to bore everybody with the numbers, but I wanted to pull those out because I think that's something that as we move into this, it's really important that we hear all voices and I know you can't please everybody. Like, I know that. I send out surveys and get emails from people as data president, and I understand we can't please everybody, but I think that, the least we can do is certainly hear. And lots of times when, we disagree with something, if we can find out the reason why, right? And that's meaning on both sides. So teachers can say, this is why I don't like it, and you can understand, you can say, this is why we do. So I just think it's really important that we're hearing all voices and going at it from different directions, right? Because there's positive and negatives to being in a committee and speaking, and there's positives and negatives, right, in being in a survey. And you get people different places, and so I just think it's important that we hear everybody that we can hear, and I think it's really, really important to remember one more day and then 3 weeks. So wishing all of you a happy holiday, and certainly all of you.
Ms. Poole, I have a quick question. When you say 68%, was that 68% in the entire data organization, or was that 68% of the responses?
Just the people, just the people who responded.
Okay,
68%.
okay.
Yep.
And
I was-
go ahead.
No, I just wasn't sure if I missed that at the beginning, so, okay.
So you highlighted those specific parts of your survey. Are you going to pass the entire information of your survey to us so that we can kind of include that?
Yeah,
That would be helpful.
because I have other questions. Break it down.
Sure.
I asked comments. Those have to be. I keep those anonymous, but I'll certainly send some of those
Sure.
along too. So yeah.
Sure, and I think
Expect 'em.
Brody may have had a question.
I apologize for not including the tree thing.
No, I mean I would have done the same thing, but since I got second, I want it out there.
Okay. That brings us to item 5, report to the Board of Trustees by the California School Employees Association.
Hello, School Board President, board members, superintendent, Dr. Moore, staff, and community. On Monday, we held our monthly chapter meeting and discussed the upcoming minimum wage increase. As of January 1st, it will become $16 an hour. Previously, with minimum wage increases, we only saw that apply to ourselves on the pay scale that were below minimum wage. For several years, that is the only increase we saw in our pay scale, which then led to our pay scale beginning to collapse, as there was not much difference between the cells and the ranges. Per School Services of California, increases in the minimum wage and its impact on classified labor negotiations is taking a backseat to Assembly Bill 1228, a law that implements $20 minimum wage for national food chains in California beginning April 1, 2024, which is already fueling salary demands at local classified bargaining tables, despite the fact that AB 1228 does not apply to local educational agencies. The difficulties in the ability to recruit, hire, and retain classified employees, especially those serving in the lowest paid classifications, may be intensified by this change. But this is not a new problem, and the challenging of fulfilling classified vacancies remains just as urgent as it was before the passage of AB 1228. So it was asked, how are we going to keep our valued, already underpaid, and overworked classified staff when they could make more at fast food? How are we going to entice new qualified employees to want to work for the district? As we head into negotiations in the next few months, we hope to continue to work on our pay scale so that we can help alleviate the high turnover rate that we continue to have. And happy holidays.
I've got a quick question. I know this has been a subject for a while, and we've all seen the signs at Panda and McDonald's, and I know this has been kind of a general topic for a while. Don't know if you know the answer, so I don't want to put you on the spot. Do they pay for health and welfare, and do they pay for retirement? I know that we pay close to $17,000 for health and welfare, and almost 27% for CalPERS for retirement. Do these restaurants, when we're looking at the totality of income earned, do we know those figures of what those organizations are paying in those arenas or not?
I'm not sure what they are paying into. However, most of our classified staff don't have that total compensation because they're 5.5 hours. So if they do have the benefits, they pay a lot of money out of pocket for those, $400, $500. So that's a good chunk of their check already. So though the food service, the fast food may not be full-time, neither are most of our lower paid classified classifications. So that, total compensation, unless you're an 8-hour employee, doesn't really affect all of our classified staff.
Okay, perfect. No, just curious. I know there's 2 tiers. We got full-time and part-time, so.
Yes.
No, I just wanted to make sure we were talking about the totality of everything, though.
Thank you so much. That brings us to item 6, communication from the public. The board will provide time during the discussion of each agenda item for members of the public to comment. At this time, members of the public may address the board on items that are not on the agenda. Comments should relate to items of public interest within the board's jurisdiction. The law does prohibit the board from taking action on items that are not on the agenda, but if appropriate, your comments will be referred to staff for response. When addressing the board, please state your name at the podium and limit your remarks to 3 minutes. In accordance with the board bylaws, the board will limit the total time of public input to 30 minutes. Those wishing to address the board beyond that 30-minute time limit may do so at the end of the scheduled meeting agenda. I now open public comment at this time.
I'm Heather Newberry. I am a SSUSD employee. I teach at Fowler, and I'm also a community member. And I'm very nervous. I talk to first graders all day, and I don't talk to adults. So just forgive me for that. I would like to
Just for the record, the first graders are smarter than us. So
that I don't disagree. I agree. I agree. They blow me away with what they know every day, and we do not give children enough credit. They're fully aware of a lot. I'd like to dovetail on what Sylvia was sharing about the question you asked about are the total compensation package. I don't know the statistics, but I do know that 20 hours at Starbucks, you can get full-time benefits that are paid for, and you might be making a couple dollars more than minimum wage at Starbucks. The job that people do in a service industry, such as a restaurant, I've done just about everything before I became a teacher. Serving is so different than caring for our children. And our management staff has just gotten a 6% retro increase on their salary schedule. I, as a teacher, am finally earning a wage that I feel is comparable to the effort and the money I've extended to better myself as an educator. And I'm grateful for that, so thank you for approving that. But our classified staff, they're hurting, and our community needs to step up and do something about that. That wasn't the initial thing I was going to bring up, but that came to mind. So please hear that call and that cry. We have people that care for these children, that step in when I can't, when our administrators can't, when we've got stuff going on, caring for our babies, our future. The people that I say, when I'm old one day in the grocery store, you have to know how to read so you can help me find what I'm looking for. That's what we need, right? And we need that investment for those people that are willing to put their time in. And there are many that would go above that 6 hour or that 5.5 hours a day, but the compensation or the benefits that they'd have to pay out of pocket, it's not fair. It's not right. The wages are very similar to when I started in education in 1998 as a paraprofessional. And I don't even like calling them that. They're my colleague. They're my assistant. They're a support. They are our assistant for our kids. That's just one soapbox I want to get on. The other, and that's the only soapbox actually, I want to say thank you for opening our district to capturing kids' hearts. It has been a phenomenal and long-needed program. You cannot help a child know who they are, where they need to be, and what they're going to do if you don't capture their hearts. So I wholly support that. Our staff at our site and our administration has, I'm over time, I'm sorry.
So your time is up, but I will tell you that this is on the agenda. So if you wish to speak to this during that agenda item, you can speak again then on this item.
I will.
Okay?
Because I have something I
Thank you.
want to say about that.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anyone else? If not, that brings us to Educational Administration. Dr. Moore, approval of contract agreement with Capturing Kids' Hearts.
Yes, we were just speaking of this.
Appreciate you setting us up there.
Yes, so thank you. Yes, it's really had an impressive welcome and implementation. I actually had the chance to walk 3 of our schools with a coach from Capturing Kids' Hearts this week. And what a remarkable opportunity to see the celebrations. The fact that we're in our first year and we're having so much implementation is really remarkable, and it's a testament to our amazing staff. And so based on initial feedback from my listening sessions and tour with all departments and all schools, seeing the well-received, and then we did another professional development survey recently with teachers, asking them what are they looking forward to for next year. And while Capturing Kids' Hearts is certainly not the only thing, it does still have very strong interest with our teaching staff. So we are recommending this renewal contract. It is paid with one-time funds, COVID relief funds, and it'll really help us continue the momentum. It will not be $325,000 every year. It's really those first 2 years is that big investment. We're blessed to have the one-time funds to do that with, and then we believe it will be a sustainable, ongoing, kind of a smaller implementation amount to, if we have new teachers, want to get them trained, kind of so that this is how we do business. But it is my recommendation that we authorize this contract for 1 more year with Capturing Kids' Hearts at this rate.
Been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from board members? Kurt?
Yeah, I guess in 17 years, I don't think I've ever seen as broad of a positive swell of support and gratitude for any program that we've ever done. So I'm hugely in favor of this. We did have the opportunity to spend some time with Vern Hazard, who is a senior VP of Capturing Kids' Hearts at CSBA, and you know, hearing his story and what he had to say about what this has done for many, many districts across the country and across the world to some extent was, you know, just kind of a foot stomp on how good this all is. So I'm significantly in favor of this. Over.
Any other questions or comments from board members? I guess I wanted to comment similarly to you, Kurt. So anecdotal response that I have seen and observed has been very positive. And we talked earlier about engaging kids. And we've talked much earlier about some of the challenges we've had with discipline and classroom management, and some of the things have changed significantly in the last several years. And how do we overcome it? From what I have heard to this point, and like I say, it's mostly anecdotal for me, It's very encouraging, and it seems to imply that if, as a district and as a community, we can readjust our approach to this type of mentality, it has the potential to be transformational. And for me, I think that's a critical opportunity for us to take. I am excited to see that in this new presentation, there is a specific category for training of the board members as well, because I believe that for us to really know what it is and know how to support it fully, we need to be fully engaged. And I believe in leadership, that's a critical component. And we can sit up here and say, wow, I've heard this so many different places and so many different times. We're all for it, but I would feel much more comfortable knowing about I'm all for it if I really know what it is. So I'm thankful for that's an element of this. I'm thankful for the kind of response we're hearing from the community, and I'm hopeful that it really can have the transformational effect on what we provide for students because we get it and they get it, and we learn how to meet those kids' needs in a better way. So I again support it. Go ahead, Kurt.
Yeah, one other thing, and it's maybe out of order, so tell me to stop if it's too far out there. But one of the things I did this past year was I was a validator for the Golden Bell Awards for that CSBA gives out every year to districts and schools across the state. And so I was able to go to the ceremony where they put those out, and just amazing the kind of support that that brings to those districts. And you know, it struck me that, you know, maybe what we're doing with capturing kids' hearts is a thing that we want to put forward, maybe this next year or the year after, you know, to demonstrate this program and how we've implemented it and what benefit to the district we've seen as a result, and you know, to kind of be a part of that to get some more visibility to, you know, some of the good stuff that's going on around here.
Appreciate that. And one of the other sessions that we attended in our delegate assembly work was the group sessions where we talked about from districts across the state what they were doing to deal with the challenges of social emotional learning and where things are with the challenges of that. And this came up in our group, and there were 5 other groups that were using this particular approach. But overall, meeting that need is certainly high in districts across the state, because it's clear that our kids need it and our communities need it. And it's not just the kids. I think, you know, our staff and all the way down the line. So if we can change some approaches to things in a way that gives us that positive nature, I think it's really, really powerful.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting that you had 5 other districts that, you know, were implementing it or at least had heard of it, because in my group, I don't think there was any other districts that had ever even heard of it. So it's a powerful program that, you know, has room to grow.
Any other questions or comments from board members? Any other questions or comments from members of the public? This would be the time for you.
State my name again.
Please, for the record.
Heather Newberry. Thank you. Not as nervous. I've calmed down. Thank you. So, Mr. Ferris, thank you for sharing that the board is on board for this and interested in this. One of the things I wanted to share was that it is from a top-down approach. It has to be, or it won't be implemented with fidelity. I have seen that at my site. The fidelity portion of it, it is from the top down. I believe the atmosphere on our site in the last 3 months has changed dramatically due to little notes being left. Jen and Dulce, thank you, love you. They have been amazing. And that helps us as teachers to then implement that same in our class. the things that I had been making note of before, to your point earlier on being able to, how to reach students of this generation or whatnot, is also part of this Capturing Kids' Heart. I have found personally being self-reflective and looking within is hard. It's challenging. I like my things. I want them a certain way. PBIS comes in. What the heck? I have to be nice all the time? Yes. And I am not. I'm a nice teacher. But what I'm saying is, like, sometimes you need to be saying, what are you doing and why are you doing that? Capturing Kids' Hearts encompasses that. It brings in the check system. What are you doing? Why are you doing that? What should you be doing? What do you need to do to get there? It's a practical approach like Harry Wong from back in the day as far as procedures and how we do things, along with the connection that humans need right now. Our little ones are suffering. They have devices put in their faces. So this is important to capture that and to be a part of that. So I love hearing that the board is interested and wants to be a part of that. What I would like to add on to that is that our classified staff was offered a half-day optional training for this. They are just as integral in implementing this Capturing Kids' Heart as I am, as my administrators are, as anyone else on the campus. Every single person that comes in contact with children with SSUSD needs the same training that I got. And it's amazing. So please, please, please consider that and give that to them as you give it to yourselves to support us. I just want to make sure I didn't forget anything. I guess that's it.
Well, thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you so much. Good discussion. I need a motion. Have a second? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Aye?
Aye.
It's unanimous. That brings us to item 2 on the special agenda, Lisa Dector, 2.1. That item is approval of Las Flores Title I school-wide program waiver and resubmission of school-wide program plan. That which I tried to start the meeting with.
Yeah, you scared me. Good evening, President Ferris, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Moore, staff and community. Las Flores Elementary has been operating as a school-wide program since July of 2011. The low-income percentage of the school has dropped below the 40% threshold. The district has determined that the best way to serve the student population is to continue to operate as a school-wide program. Las Flores would lose access to their 23-24 Title I allocation, which funds critical personnel to implement their collaboration and intervention model. It is recommended that the board approve the school-wide program waiver and school-wide plan as presented.
Move the recommended action.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments from board members? Brody?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out where this is on the agenda.
Okay, so I apologize. This was added as under a special agenda. And that's why it's not on your first page.
Okay.
And so is on that special agenda, it is under Educational Administration as 2.1.
Okay.
Okay?
you.
Thanks for paying attention. Any other questions or comments from board members? Any questions or comments from members of the public? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Okay. Now it's your turn, Mr. Auld. We'll go to Personnel Administration, 8.1, notification of additional adjustment of salary compensation for CSEA and its Chapter 188 employees for the 2023-24 school year.
President Ferris, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Moore, and community. With your agreement, I'd like to bundle 8.1, 8.2, and 8.3 since the background information, financial.
I believe you will find no
Okay.
opposition
I didn't
on the
think
members
so.
up here.
All right. So while the agreements between bargaining units and groups may vary to some extent, the district endeavors to support compensation increases representing overall equivalent value. The district reached a settlement agreement with Data for the 23-24 school year. In the agreement, the district will retroactively apply an 8% ongoing increase to each salary schedule beginning in July 1, 2023. Also, for the 23-24 school year, a 2% off schedule bonus will be paid to all data members who complete the school year. Confidential employees, management, and CSEA employees had all settled for less than 8% prior to our agreement with data. And so this is our opportunity to do what we often refer to as a true-up for those employee groups so that it is equivalent. With regards to financial implications, implementation of the agreement is supported by a 3-year multi-year projection within the board's adopted 5% ending fund balance reserve requirement. The multi-year projection will be submitted to the Kern County Superintendent of Schools office for approval. It is recommended that the board approve the additional adjustment of salary compensation for confidential management and CSEA commencing in the 2023-24 school year as presented.
I have a motion and a second to approve the recommended action for 8.1, 2, and 3 together. Any comments or questions on board members? Any comments or questions from members of the public? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Brings us to item 4, revision of job description for a classified position, Central Kitchen Manager. Mr. Auld.
The Central Kitchen Manager position has traditionally been an 11-month position and was sufficient to meet the needs of the 10-month school year and a traditional summer school. However, the district is now required to facilitate the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program during the summer. Specifically, the district is required to offer a minimum of 30 days to our TK through 6th grade students. The ELOP is offered at several of our elementary sites, and child nutrition services are required. The ELOP now extends well past summer school into mid to late July. Therefore, it is critically important that the Central Kitchen Manager be on duty to help prepare food for each of the sites hosting the program. Consequently, it is necessary to extend the Central Kitchen Manager position from an 11-month contract to a 12-month contract. The financial implications, it would be approximately $4,000 more than we currently pay. It's recommended that the board approve the revisions to the classified position entitled Central Kitchen Manager as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded twice. Any questions or comments from board members? Questions or comments from members of the public? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. That brings us to 9.1, gifts to the district. Mr. Scott.
The following gifts were received. The VFW Auxiliary made a cash donation of $100 to be used by the Adult Transition Program at Burroughs High School. The Association of California School Administrators made a cash donation of $1,000 to the SELPA Eastern Sierra Walk for Autism. And Dr. April Moore made a cash donation of $500 to be used for student and staff appreciation. Donations provide support to the district and have a positive financial impact. I recommend that the board accept the gifts as described and send appropriate letters of appreciation.
It has been moved. Do I have a second?
Move to recommend action.
It's been moved. I just need a second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from board members? Questions or comments from members of the public? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. That brings us to item 9.2, approval of Creative Consulting Services Agreement. Dr. Moore.
Thank you. As you know, we do not have a public information officer, public relations person in a district our size. That's not unusual. Instead, on occasion, we'll outsource for different projects that we may need, and that is what this 9.2 is related to. So Creative Consulting is a firm locally run that works with school districts on videography, branding, websites, social media, just kind of a whole package. And we're particularly interested in updating our videos and doing some really well-done communications related to staff recruitment, enrollment, just some timely things, as well as some celebratory projects as well. So our proposal is about $30,000. It's not to exceed, so that's it may be less. Through June 30th, just to build our database of videos that we'll be able to use. Like some of ours are more than 5 years old that we've been using for teacher recruitment as one example. What I also particularly liked about Creative Consulting, not only do they work with a lot of schools and districts in our area and they understand our work, They also, when they're creating videos, it's not a one-and-done item. They create a bank of the footage that we will have access to and can repurpose and use for other projects. And so it's more of a sustainable approach than other times where we just get one video or one project. So my recommendation is that we authorize this agreement and go from there.
Second.
Been moved and second. Questions or comments? Questions or comments from the public? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. That brings us to Construction Administration, report to the board, constructive activities and issues. Number 1, Randy Coit.
President Ferris, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Moore, staff and community, I'm pleased to give this update on the status of the district's construction activities. This report is presented for informational purposes and no action is required. So this is a recap from last month. Our projects are the same. Richmond School, the DOD project is ongoing. Fowler Preschool, I've got slides for all these, electric bus yards and HVAC replacements. I'll talk to those, show you a couple slides. For Murray Middle School expansion, we are in the initial planning. We've got some pencil sketches, but Maurice wasn't ready to show those. He wanted something that looked a little better. So I promised we'll have some preliminary sketches next board meeting to show you with Murray School. So we'll go back to Richmond. And that's our layout. The focus up till now has just been a lot on Building B, but now we're moving on and we're going to be looking at a lot of slides of Building A today. So there's Building A Monday this week. So you can see quite a bit of change. I think we were setting the roof the last board meeting. So 3 weeks later, there's Building A. A close-up of it, you can see on Monday afternoon, we're still missing a few modules for the front. Tuesday, half of that's been set. Now you've got a strain. I should have put a grid on this, like when you have to, click on the grid when you're trying to verify something that you're not a robot. And what building, and where do you see a building on a truck in this? Because that's kind of what I see when I look at those things. So way up there is a triangle or the turn on the China Lake Boulevard. That you can maybe see some red iron and some wood. That's the last 2 trucks being delivered Tuesday afternoon, or Wednesday afternoon to the site. I'm not sure how they got through the traffic on China Lake Boulevard, but they were making that turn.
Do you have a P on your badge to take a picture of the China Lake facility?
No, I don't. I think that's...
I think somebody here is going to speak with you after this.
Captain Vaughn, can you see anything critical? So here we are. Oh, I'm clicking the wrong direction. This is this morning. The buildings are set. So I step back, take a little wider view, and you can see Building A, all the exterior, all the plywood and roof structures are up. And you can see Building B there also in that shot. This is Building C footings. So in the next couple of months, we'll have buildings sitting on those footings for Building C. This is the interior of the library on Building A starting to come together. You can see some bookshelves going up and other cabinetry ready to go. This is another classroom in Building B. You can see, again, millwork going in. These are kinders or TKs, so they have restrooms in all the classrooms and starting to take shape. Fowler Preschool. One item is left for completion, which is the painting of the track, and that will occur this Saturday. So we've been waiting for that, and we were in the process now of closing this project out. On Monday, these barred units will come out of storage and we'll complete the HVAC replacement project over the winter break. So I think I showed you this same slide last month, bringing you up to date, and Monday's scheduled start of that, and we've got a 3-week period there to install and commission 32 units over the break. The bus yard, electric bus yard, this week we completed the electrical portion. Lighting is now functioning correctly. All the charging units are installed. We have one more city permit to get approval on. We have a verbal on it. They're going to come out Monday, sign off on that. We have to open up some of these units to let them inspect the inside of the charging units. There's some wireless devices that'll begin to be installed over the next couple weeks. And we have commissioning of the charging units scheduled for the week of January 15th. And the one loose end on this, you don't see striping. We have an issue with the asphalt. It has some uneven areas. It doesn't drain well. There's some exposed aggregate. And so we're right now back and forth between the CM and the architect and the contractor trying to resolve this. And at this point, I've had no one make any offers that would totally fix this problem that we have there. So that's our one outstanding issue. If it comes down to we have to wait till warmer weather to redo that base, we could go ahead and have buses there sometime towards the end of January. It'll be ready to go. So that's the backup plan. If the electric buses arrive, we may have to push this off for warmer weather because it's a challenge to put asphalt down in the wintertime. And that is it for my report. Any questions?
Any questions for board members? Robert?
So, let's say you get the buses, can you park the buses out there and then fix the asphalt later? Or you can't put anything on the asphalt until you fix the asphalt?
No, we could put the buses out there now. It's just a matter of, I don't think we're going to be happy with the quality of that work long term. It doesn't drain well. Yeah. And it's a difficult situation to deal with anytime you try to go back on a contractor for poor quality, and that's what we've got there.
So we need a good rain then, so we can show them.
No, I was going to say the same thing. So why do we have to worry about it? It doesn't rain here.
Right.
Any other questions or comments from board members? Thank you, Randy. That brings us to general administration. No, I'm sorry. We pulled item 5. And you are on item 2, approval of agreement with Granite Construction Concrete and Off-Site Improvements for the Richmond Elementary School Replacement Project.
And with your permission, I'd like to bundle 10-2 and 10-4. They're the same background.
Okay.
And would you like me to go one at a time with that so we
No,
look at the
sir.
dollars, just move along?
We
Okay,
are
so-
all about bundling.
So we're in approval of an agreement with Granite Construction for off-site improvements for the Richmond Elementary project. And of course, we know that's the DOD OLDCC project. The cost for the off-site work is $1,255,125. For the, there's 2 change orders, are 10.4. And the first one is the water line, and that was much publicized a few months ago that there was a difference between where we were told the water line was and where it existed. And the Water District has helped us with some of this. The cost of the change order for the additional pipe is $169,434.95. The next item, change order for Bachman Woody, is power for the off-site utilities. So it's the extension of the Edison power coming to the site. That was going to be bid as a separate project, and we feel we're saving money between the bidding and the mobilization of contractors continue with Bachman Woody, and we believe this is a reasonable price of $274,365.19 for the off-site power. So it's recommended the board approve these items.
Do I have a second?
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from board members? Any questions or comments from members of the public or staff? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No, he's here. He's so small, you didn't notice him, right? That is unanimous. That brings us to item 3, approval of agreement with JTS Construction of the site contract for 2 relocatable classrooms to support universal transitional kindergarten requirements.
So this item is for the concrete site work at Fowler and Las Flores. As you recall, last year we purchased the buildings and they're currently being stored. We've been trying to get this on-site work, the actual site work, accomplished for over a year, and we've had trouble getting contractors mobilized and getting pricing that we felt was somewhere reasonable. This bid was over $400,000 last year, and so it's a little bit lower. Our cost for JTS construction for site concrete is $392,500, and it is recommended that the board approve an agreement with JTS construction for site concrete, 2 relocatable classrooms to support the universal TK requirements.
Move to recommend action?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Kurt?
Yep, so, notice we had one bidder on this, and that always makes me wonder, are we paying way more than we should for these services? What's the story there? And I guess the other thing that got me was, this is for basically pads for 2, relocatables. And the other action with Granite was for, basically 4 times the amount that we're being asked to spend on here. But, I'm hearing, resurfacing, a couple streets and a swale and a whole lot of stuff. And it just seemed a little weird that, it's $400,000 for two pads.
Right. It does to me also, and my first reaction was, do we even accept this bid? If we don't move along, we're going to be in the same position in August. We're not going to have the classrooms installed. I ask our CEM this constantly when bids come in, and as you know, a lot of times there's 1 or 2 bids, and the answer I get is these projects of this size are small enough that most contractors don't want to participate in these small projects. It's a tough answer, and I'm not sure I like hearing it, but that's the answer we're getting out of our CM when we ask why are there only 1 or 2 bidders per project. And they give me a list of people they've contacted, and most of the people do not want to bid on the project because they've got enough work at home, is the answer I'll get.
So it seems like this came up before, and the bids weren't good, so we went back to the well. And
right.
So I think the good news is this is actually less than.
It's less, and there's some other portions of this. There's some demolition and some other work, electrical, that goes along with that. And those bids are actually lower than last year too. So there was quite a bit of savings. The other items were under the limit where they don't require board approval, and this one was over the limit. So.
And we don't have local guys that want to do this?
We ask.
Yeah.
They just don't seem to. There are a lot of regulations to do public works contracts that don't apply to other work, and usually, for the couple we have that do participate on smaller jobs, we appreciate it, but most of them just don't want to qualify with the state to follow all the rules and, not only prevailing wage, but all the payroll records have to be submitted, and it becomes pretty complicated. And I guess if you've got enough work doing other things.
Becomes complicated and drives the price up, and there you are.
Yeah,
again,
here
right?
we are.
Here we are, yeah, right, yep. All right, thanks, Randy.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments from board members? Questions or comments from members of the public? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Item 5 has been pulled. That brings us to business administration. Approval of the first interim report for fiscal year 23-24. Ms. McGuire.
Good evening, President Ferris, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Moore, staff, and community. Key takeaways of the 23-24 first interim report are as follows. In the local control funding formula, at the time this report was prepared, the unduplicated percentage count indicated a possible reduction in supplemental and concentration funding. A review of the data revealed that less than 1/2 of families of enrolled students had responded to the household income survey. District staff continue to encourage families to complete the survey. Other unrestricted and restricted revenues reflect the posting of carryover and deferred revenue from the 22-23 fiscal year, as well as the anticipated grant reimbursement for the 6 electric buses ordered in 22-23. Expenditures reflect the settlement of negotiations with all bargaining units, posting of donation carryover, and the anticipated receipt and payment of the grant-funded electric buses. Staff continue to monitor cash flow as well as expenses, and it is recommended that the board approve the 23-24 first interim report as presented.
It's been moved and seconded. Do we have any questions of Ms. McGuire? Any comments? I appreciate your calling the attention to the survey issue. I know it's been a crisis for us before, and it is a crisis for us again. I will tell you that at the conference, we do hear that this is not just unique to us. It is a challenge for many districts. That doesn't mean we can't address it. We certainly need to. There's a lot at stake there, so I appreciate the efforts that are being taken to get us where we need to be. It's one thing not to qualify because you don't have the students. It's a whole other story to not qualify because you couldn't identify the students that you're pretty sure you have.
Exactly.
And I know that's frustrating for everybody involved. So I'm hopeful that our efforts can benefit us in this way. So.
I'll add, I discussed this with some folks up there as well, and I mentioned the challenge and what, kind of how badly it hurts us. And I had a board member, come up and grab me after the session and tell me that, they've solved the problem. So I've passed along, that approach to Dr. Moore, and hopefully we can be a little more forceful with getting this done. But to be clear, for anybody listening, what the challenge here, to give it a little more detail, is that we put out a survey, the income survey form, for those of you that have filled these out, and I've filled out many, because I had to fill out 3 every single stinking year.
Only 3, huh?
Yeah, yeah, right, yeah, not 20, yeah. But that doesn't only qualify you as the person who fills out the form for a free and reduced lunch and breakfast, because everybody gets that now. But what it does do is it gives us the data we need to hand to the state to provide us with an ability to gain significant funding to support a lot of various programs associated with that. So if you're listening to this, or if you know anybody that's out there that you can go grab and make sure they've filled out that form and got it sent in, because I guess it can still help us. And so it's not over yet, even though we're well into the school year. So it's a big deal. I think there's, like I said, ways to maybe next year make it a much more seamless and quick and relatively easy process. But if you've got the ability to impact anybody now, please do so.
Any other questions or comments from board members? Questions or comments from members of the public or staff? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Brings us to item 2, adoption of resolution number 13-2324 regarding the release of excess impounded tax revenues to anticipate pending claims and/or litigation, impounds Fund 77. Ms. McGuire.
As we heard Lori Ranieri speak earlier this evening about the property taxes and the assessed value and how all that works to support the community. Every year, the County Auditor Controller's Office reviews claims made by property owners regarding the amount of assessed taxes. Based on their evaluation, they set aside a certain amount of property taxes collected to mitigate any changes in the amount of taxes paid out. Depending on the evaluation, the district may be informed of a need to impound or release these funds. Sometimes an increase in the amount set aside for this purpose is necessary, while other times there may be an excess in the estimated amount set aside. In this case, the district has been informed that there is an excess amount of $2,084.08 and needs to submit the letter attached to this item as well as the board resolution to release these funds. The release of these excess funds will be offset by the amount of state aid that the district receives. This adjustment will be part of the first principal apportionment, or P1, released in February by the California Department of Education. It is recommended that the board approve resolution number 132324, release of impound tax revenues, as presented.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments from board members? Questions or comments from members of the public or staff? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Brings us to item 3, adoption of resolution number 142324 regarding the annual accounting of developer fees for the 2022-23 fiscal year. Capital Facilities Fund number 25.
So it was brought to my attention that I may have been less than clear in my original header, and I have written a revised analysis of the data. The original analysis of the data presented compared city fees to county fees. A further analysis comparing the fees collected year over year does reflect a significant decrease in city fees collected during the 22-23 fiscal year when compared to the previous 4 years. This appears to reflect the current economic slowdown experienced across the state. County fees fluctuate year over year with an increase in 22-23 versus the prior year. However, they are still lower than those collected in 2019-20. These fees are collected and reported to the district by the city and county. At this time, there is no way to accurately predict the amount of developer fees that will be collected going forward. The rest of the header indicates what we started out with, what we've received, what we've expended, what they were expended on, and what our ending balance is as of June 30th, 2023. It is recommended that the board approve resolution number 142324 and the associated information as presented.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from board members? Any questions or comments from members of the staff or public? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
That brings us to our consent calendar.
Move the entire consent calendar. Second.
Consent calendar has been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Brings us to item 14, organization of the board. It's time to shuffle the deck, ladies and gentlemen. Would you like to chair this portion of the meeting?
Yes, it is one of those opportunities as the board considers reshuffling that the superintendent serves as the chair temporarily. And I will happily give it back to you. So I will now welcome
It's a job you don't want, huh?
any nominations for the office of president of the board from now until next year's organizational meeting.
I'd like to nominate Mr. Ferris. I know it's normal that the VP will slide into that role, but with your recent hiring, and I know that the work that Mr. Ferris has been doing with you, this is one of his strengths and expertise and knowledge. I would rather see you continue your work with her since she's only been here 5 months. So I would relinquish my time, and since I'm giving up my time for that, I would also give up my time for this. I don't want to hold this seat up for anyone else. So if that makes sense, I would like to nominate Mr. Ferris to continue as president for this next year. I move to close nominations.
Okay,
Agreed.
so we have a nomination. Do we want to then have a motion and a second? Was that essentially a second?
Yeah.
Second.
Mr. Rockwell? Okay. That was a second for his motion, essentially.
Yes.
Okay.
I guess a second for this motion.
All right, thank you. So Diane will need a roll call vote. You want me to call him out? Okay, so Mr. Rockwell?
Mr. Ferris?
Mr. Campbell?
Mr. Ferris?
Mrs. Campbell?
Mr. Ferris.
And Mr. Scott?
Mr. Ferris?
And Mr. Ferris.
Well, I guess Mr. Ferris, and thank you for the
Put
support.
it on your calendar, because I'm never gonna say anything good about you ever again.
Well earned.
Yes, no, you're doing a great job in there, like I said, I just don't want to disrupt that, so.
Well, I appreciate the confidence, and I hope I don't let you down.
All right.
Now that he's president, we have to let him know that all the rest of us are resigning effective tonight. Is that, no.
All right, 14.2 is to elect a vice president or clerk by roll call vote. And so first we'll ask for nominations for the vice president/clerk of the board from now until the next organizational meeting, December 2024.
I'd like to make a nomination of Mr. Rockwell if Mr. Scott does not wish to continue, so.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Okay. And I'll just go ahead and take the vote on that one, and we'll see.
I'll make a motion that we close nominations.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Scott. So let's do our roll call vote, and I'll start the opposite direction. So Mr. Ferris?
Aye.
Mr. Scott?
Mr. Rockwell?
Okay, Mrs. Campbell?
Mr. Rockwell.
Mr. Campbell?
Mr. Rockwell?
Okay, Mr. Rockwell. Okay, so we have our president and vice president. Then we have 14.3, which is a board rep and alternate representative to the committee that elects the members to the county committee. And this is an interesting formality that may or may not be actually implemented, apparently, but it is one of those things we do report to the county after tonight's meeting. And so currently we have Mrs. Mary Campbell as the representative and Mr. Robert Campbell as the alternate. So I would welcome nominations for a representative and alternate representative to serve on the committee that elects the members to the county committee on school district organization.
Hearing no other motions, I would move we maintain the same membership.
Okay, so Mr. Rockwell would like to second it. Would someone like to close nominations? Move to close?
Make a motion, we close the nominations.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second, and this one is also a roll call vote. So Mr. Ferris?
I vote in favor of the motion.
Okay. Mr. Scott?
Favor of the motion.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Aye. Okay. Mr. Campbell?
Move the, keep the same motion.
Okay. And Mr. Rockwell?
Yeah, I move for Mrs. Campbell to be the representative and Mr. Campbell to be the alternate.
Thank you, thank you. And then
The Mr. Campbell that's here, this one.
14.4 is our board representative to the NAFIS meetings. We typically identify and elect someone at this meeting, and that is currently Mr. Scott, who is our representative to NAFIS. So would welcome nominations for that representative from now to December 2024.
If I might ask a question? Mr. Scott, are you?
I think one of the Campbells had expressed some interest in it prior. If either one of them are still interested, I'd like to nominate them.
Yeah, I think I had some interest last year, so sure.
I nominate Mr. Robert Campbell.
I second that.
Okay.
I move we close nominations.
All right, there we go. Then let's do our roll call vote. Mr. Ferris?
Mr. Campbell?
Mr. Scott?
Mr. Campbell.
Mrs. Campbell?
Mr. Campbell?
Mr. Rockwell?
Mr. Campbell.
We need
And
to
then
have
I'll
one
go
change
back
your
to
name.
Mr. Campbell. Mr. Campbell.
Mr. Campbell.
Okay, all right, so,
I should have voted.
and now I happily turn the meeting back over to Mr. Ferris, who is much smoother at running these.
We will temporarily adjourn the meeting of the Sierra Sands Unified School District Board of Education to convene the meeting of the Incarn Schools Financing Authority Board of Directors. The only item on the agenda, I believe, is to approve the minutes. If they are okay with everybody, we will accept those as presented. And the acknowledgement of new officers. Thank you for calling my attention to that. So we have the same officers for the Indian Kern Schools Financing Authority as we do for the Sierra Sands Unified School District Board of Education. Item 16 brings us to I have to reconvene. I'll close the meeting of the Indian Kern Schools Financing Authority Board of Directors and reconvene the meeting of the Sierra Sands Unified School District Board of Education to item 16, future agenda. Any recommended future agenda items? Hearing none, which is a good thing, I will move to item 17, which is adjournment. The next regular meeting of the Board of Education will be January 18th. Thank you all for coming, and we hope you all have a wonderful holiday.